Alright, so today we're going to talk about some troubleshooting issues with motion in all of the axes on the Printrbot Simple Metal. One thing I would like to say, before you work on your printer, before you really manhandle anything or move things around, always make sure that you first unplug both the computer and the power. Generally speaking, if you have given any kind of power into those servo motors, they can actually be holding their axes steady and not just loose. And at that point, manhandling or moving anything physically can actually wind up causing some damage to the motors themselves. So always make sure that when you're working on your machine, you do so without power if at all possible. I know that means restarting programs 6 or 7 times to see if your changes took effect, but it's really the best way to make your machine last as long as possible. Alright, so we're going to start with the Z-axis.
Here we have a model where the Z-axis on the printer stopped working and all of the plastic smushed together at the top of the object. And what we saw was happening is that the servo at the bottom was spinning inside of the coupler here, but because the set screw was not tightened, it was spinning, but the Z-axis wouldn't move up and down. So if we tighten the screw back up, we should be able to get the Z-axis to move again. And we're using a 1.5 millimeter head on the hex screws. Just tighten in the top one just to make sure. And now we have motion in the Z-axis again.
So this is an example of a print that shifted partway through, which could be an X or a Y axis problem. We're going to take a look at what possible X axis problems could be. There are some set screws in here, just like we saw on the Z axis, and those can be adjusted. The other thing to look for on the X axis would be the belt. It should be mostly taut but with a little bit of flex, and can be adjusted through the screws on the top. By turning, you can get some flex, or you can tighten, and that should resolve the issue.
Okay, real quick, that shifted print can also happen if you have problems with your Y-axis. So once again, it's the exact same thing as the X-axis. There's a set screw, you can kind of see it down in there if the motor happens to come loose, and you also have a belt here. You can tighten that from the ends just like you could the X-axis underneath. I will say these are much harder to get to. If you want, you can actually wind up taking off this whole front plate. It just pops off, and it gives you much better access to things like the motor and the belt. But you don't necessarily have to if you can actually feed an Allen wrench or something down in that little hole to fix the set screw. If that's the issue, more power to you. But that would be troubleshooting the same problem in the Y-axis.